But in fact, the lawyer says the police has enough evidence of your, based on your activity online, the websites you visited, the mobile apps you've used, the people you talk to. The police has enough evidence to link you to a group of terrorists. And you're completely shocked and helpless. You have no idea what to do. While this might sound like some sort of a scene coming out from a thriller, from a sort of a scary movie, it actually happened to thousands of people just last year. In Turkey, about 11,000 people were put to prison because the government saw them using a mobile app, a messaging mobile app, which was developed and which was used by the organizers of the failed coup in Turkey in 2016. So what really happened indeed was that the 11,000 people were actually innocent, and they had never heard about the mobile app whatsoever. They'd never seen that app. What happened was that their mobile phones were infected with malicious software, which behaved just like this mobile app behind the curtains, without them even knowing without them knowing what was happening. So let's think about this for a moment. We've got into a situation in which 11,000 people were put to prison. Many of them actually lost their jobs. They were discriminated in their communities just because their mobile phones were hacked by malicious software, while at the same time the government was spying on what they were doing online. So this is a really good example on how the internet is making us all vulnerable. Its complexity and its lack of mechanisms to ensure that our personal privacy is respected online is leaving us, the users, in the hands of those on the hands of corporations, in the hands of governments, and potentially in the hands of criminals as well. When we use the internet, we're leaking a lot of data about our behavior online. Data about who am I talking to, which online content do I access and how often, with which devices, from which physical locations. All of this data is being collected, it's being gathered at a massive scale by big corporations such as internet service providers, governments, and potentially criminals as well. And this actually has a profound impact on our society. Just think about the recent cases with Cambridge Analytica, in which this company collected and used data of millions of US American citizens to change or to influence the course of the US presidential elections in the same country. Unfortunately, this is exactly what the internet is turning into. The internet is turning into this big machine in which those who have power, those who have enough economical and also political power, are collecting our data and using it to maintain and to gain even more power. And you may think that your personal data, it's worth nothing. You have nothing to hide online. You don't care whether the government or the internet service providers are seeing what kind of websites are you visiting. But I'm afraid that's quite of a narrow way of looking into this problem. This is not so much of a personal, individual problem as it is actually a collective problem. If you think that because the government can see what we're doing online all the time, which websites are we visiting, when, and so forth, they can also block access to online content. And as a matter of fact, that's happening in many countries, unfortunately. As well as the fact that the government can check what we're doing online, it's also easy to trace back and silence those who speak for our communities, for our societies, such as journalists, political dissidents, and so on. So I'm really passionate about the internet, and I really believe that an internet in which our personal privacy is not respected, is an internet which has a lot of issues, a lot of problems. And when our internet is not safe, is not secure, our society is not safe nor secure either. So, and because I'm really passionate about the internet, like to discuss or to bring up one of what I believe could be a really good solution for this problem. But let me be upfront with you. This solution is quite controversial. It's many of the media who talk about this solution believe that and say that this is a quite disturbing technology, is the dark corners of the internet. And research has shown that about 7 out of 10 people believe that this should not exist. But I also believe that for big problems, we need bold solutions. And I think that the solution for the current state of the internet is the dark web. And I'm telling you this as someone who uses the dark web on a daily basis and also contributes for it actively to keep running. And I know that if you probably heard about the dark web before, you're probably wondering that this is quite a sketchy technology, isn't it? And you're quite skeptical about this. If you've never heard about it, you're probably even scared with just by its name. But let's not jump to conclusions, and let's see what the dark web is and how we can use it to empower ourselves and to solve the problems of the internet. So a dark web is a network of computers that are connected to the internet, in which for you to access and to be part of this network, you have to have a special software installed, and you have to have special configurations as well. When you're part of this web, you can also access the normal internet through it. So basically, and based on this definition, there are multiple dark webs in use nowadays. However, the most popular one is called Tor, the onion router. So Tor is the dark web, which provides a really strong layer of anonymity to its users, to those who are accessing the internet through this dark web. And it was developed by the US military back then in the days, but nowadays it's so much more than that. There's a huge community behind it, a lot of people contributing for it to keep running. It's an open source project, and there's also a lot of people, thousands of people using it on a daily basis in order to protect their privacy. But how does actually the Tor dark web help us to solve the issues of the data leaked on the internet when we use the internet? So let's imagine the internet as a set of tennis matches in which the user, when the user wants to connect to a website and interact with the website, send comments, receive more web pages, he starts a tennis match with this website or with this app. And every time there's a request, the balls are exchanged between the players and the website itself. So the internet can be seen pretty much as a series of millions of these tennis matches of the users communicating with different websites. The interesting thing about this, though, is that unfortunately there is a really active audience watching these matches. We've got big corporations, internet service providers, we've got the governments, we've got also the criminals, as we know. They're all watching the matches and registering who is playing with whom, at what time, doing what, and so forth. So the Tor dark web works as a tennis ball thrower machine. What this tennis ball thrower machine does is that it receives a lot of balls from different players in its big bucket, and then eventually it sends the balls to the correct destinations. So what happens in this case is that the user, instead of sending the connections and exchanging the connections directly with the player, with the other player, which is the website, now he sends the balls to this tennis throw machine, to this big bucket, in which many other thousands of people are doing the same. And then the thrower machine will distribute the balls after a while. So what happens in this situation is that those who are watching the games, watching the matches, will not understand who is talking to whom, nor when, because they completely lose track of what's happening. In real life, what's happening behind the curtains is that there is a network of computers connected within each other, accepting connections from the users, from us who are using the Tor dark web, shuffling those connections, encrypting the connections, and then sending those same connections to the correct place. And that's what the Tor dark web is all about. There's no magic, there's no darkness in it. That's it. And from a user perspective, all it takes to start leveraging and start using the dark web is to download the browser, which takes a couple of minutes, and start accessing the websites through it. Instead of using your normal web browser, you're actually visiting the web pages you wish through this browser. And that's about it. With this basic thing, you're protecting your private data from being leaked online. And yes, the dark web has been portrayed as the technology which enables criminals to conduct their operations online. Child pornography industry, for example, drug stores, or even the hackers who steal credit cards and sell it online. They all need anonymity. Anonymity is a really important asset for them to operate online. But thinking that the Tor dark web is a sort of an evil technology, a bad technology, just because of that, is, in my opinion, a really short-sighted way of looking at technology. Just think about the example of cash.